Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Okay guys, I'm going to be seeing a video today. This is titled Indonesia could be Asia's most strategic country, and here is why. Okay, this is going to be my first time reaction to a video like this concerning Indonesia. All right, so without further ado, please subscribe to the channel, and if you find this video interesting, like, share and comment on it. Okay, so let's jump in.
The Indo-Pacific has become the single most geopolitically relevant region in the world. Heavy and middleweight global players like the US, China, India, and Japan sit at its fringes, making this region central in their security policies. Perhaps the most critical area in this region is Southeast Asia. At its political and geographical core is arguably the most strategic country on Earth. Indonesia, the country at the center of the Indo-Pacific region. Three main reasons explain the Southeast Asian nation's strategic emergence. First, the centrality of Indonesia in the global sea routes. Second, the diplomatic importance of Southeast Asia in global power balance and the US-China rivalry. And third, the military potential of Indonesia. Southeast Asia is not only a geopolitical hub, but also a major gateway for the Europe-Asia undersea internet cables, like the Seamiwi 3, connecting South Korea to Belgium. Most countries are in fact connected to the internet via multiple sea cables, as these offer better protection to disruptions and tapping than land-based ones. These are critical pieces of infrastructure and are therefore thoroughly secured. Just like whole nations, people need to make sure their own lines of communication are secure. So why is Indonesia such a global geopolitical hub? And what does this mean for the future? Well, the first simple answer to these questions is, as always, geography. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic nation, formed from over 16,000 islands, spread over an area of more than 3 million square miles. Indonesia is comprised of only 5 main islands: Sumatra, Java, majority of Borneo, Sulawesi, and half of Papua. It is a surprisingly huge country, extending across 3 time zones for over 3,000 miles, around the same distance from New York City to Lisbon. Its land borders are with Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and East Timor. Other neighboring countries include Singapore, the Philippines, Australia, and India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The country is also the 4th most populous nation on Earth, with over 270 million citizens, around 150 of which live on Java, the most populated island in the world. The sinking capital, Jakarta, accounts itself for around 10 million residents. Indonesia's size and makeup present some unique challenges, which we will be talking about later. But for now, we need to ask, how does this nature shape Indonesia's strategic value? Indonesia's first strategic value lies in its central position in global sea trade routes. Specifically, its choke points act as gateways, connecting and potentially shutting the access between Indian and Pacific Oceans. The majority of the trade traveling between the Indian and Pacific Oceans passes partially or fully through Indonesia's territorial waters. This strategic value is only compounded by the many choke points that lie at the entrance and exit of these critical waterways. It seems that no matter what it is or where it is traveling, all goods are eventually forced through Indonesia's 4 major choke points at some point in their life cycle. Routes starting at the oil-rich Persian Gulf or destined for Europe are funneled through the Malacca Strait. Those between Asia and Africa typically sail through the Sunda Strait, while deep draft tankers and bulk carriers prefer the deeper waterways of the Lombok and Ombai Wetar Straits. It has been estimated that around 50% of global trade by tonnage passes through these sea lanes each year. And for some resources, this dependence is only amplified. For example, it is estimated that 80% of China's oil imports pass through the Malacca Strait, and that figure rises up to 90% for Japan and South Korea. As Asia's markets continue to develop and their role in the international trade route continues to boom, Indonesia's strategic role over the world's maritime trade is only set to grow. However, two main threats hang over these stretches of water, which actually bolster Indonesia's influence as it is encouraged to take an increasingly active role in policing them. First, these straits are vulnerable to active blockage and piracy. Second, these waterways are already struggling with congestion, which may only escalate in the future as trade volumes and the size of ships that service them continue to grow. Strict safety regulations and continuous trans-regional police controls have kept these stretches of water relatively safe and accessible to this point. However, with a forecasted rise in the domestic consumption of goods and resources in all Asian nations in the upcoming decades, increasing trade is presumably the most critical challenge for these straits. Currently, the Malacca Strait is one of the most important choke points on Earth. Around 10,000 ships pass through the strait every year, but its relatively shallow waters place a natural limit on the size of vessels that can use it. For larger vessels, the only alternatives to the Malacca Strait are also all choke points in Indonesia's territorial waters. The closest is the Sunda Strait, sitting between the islands of Sumatra and Java. This stretch of water, which itself is only around 15 miles wide and 50 miles long, already services an average of 3,500 ships, transporting around 15 million metric tons of cargo per year. A more popular choice for the largest vessels is the Lombok Strait. With an average depth of 150 meters and 11 miles of width at its narrowest, this route offers a far safer alternative to the large tankers and bulk carriers. For this reason, it is the second most popular of these choke points, with an average of 3,900 ships annually transporting around 140 million metric tons of goods per year, at a combined value of $40 billion. The third major strait is the Ombai-Wetar, between the island of Timor and Wetar. This passage is extremely deep, making it favorable to the ultra-large crude carriers. Indonesia is a vital player in the world's seaborne trade. Its straits effectively act as valves, connecting and potentially halting the flow of goods between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This gateway role is also important in explaining why the US and China have turned to Jakarta in search of an ally for their ongoing geopolitical competition. Being the center of the Indo-Pacific region, Indonesia is also at the crossroads of multiple and often conflicting goals of some of the world's largest powers. By far the most influential in this region, China has pushed for the expansion of its economic and diplomatic influence through the Belt and Road Initiative since 2013. As its land section unfurls through Central Asia all the way to Europe, its maritime version covers the whole of Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. From a Chinese perspective, it is essential to bound Southeast Asia to the BRI, both as Beijing looks to create a favorable diplomatic and security environment around its borders, and to bolster its territorial claims in the region, especially on the hotly contested South China Sea. Indonesia has formally adhered to the Maritime Belt and Road Initiative, and China has been its largest trading partner since 2013. In 2019, this trade had a value of around $72 billion and now accounts for 43% of Indonesia's foreign trade. By comparison, that's almost the equivalent to its combined trade with the US, Japan, and India. The rise of China's economic and military clout has shifted the global balance of power towards Asia. America had been mostly focused on the Middle East for the majority of the late 1990s and 2000s. outsourcing its commitment to Southeast Asia through its ongoing relationships with major regional partners, such as Australia, Japan, and the Philippines. This largely changed under the Obama administration's Pacific rebound and famously coy pivot to Asia, which was bolstered under the Trump and Biden administrations. As part of this, Indonesia was one of the few Southeast Asian nations to receive the green light from the U.S. State Department to receive American weaponry. The United States also holds numerous military exercises with Indonesia, including the most recent 2021's Garuda Shield, which was the largest ever between the two countries. Conflicting foreign powers' interests have become the norm in Southeast Asia, as the area yet again becomes the focus of competing defense policy agendas from major powers eager to project their influence over each other's backyard. Indonesia, strategically placed at the center of this region and the Indo-Pacific, yet vital to its access, is in prime position to exploit this reality as its importance only grows over time. Indonesia needs to bolster its own capabilities to avoid being used as a puppet in a foreign power rivalry. If a conflict between the U.S.
Okay, so far so good from this documentary. Okay, I can see that Indonesia is actually in a very good geographical position, all right? And I hope their government can manage to retain Indonesia's regional position, because historically, being in the middle of a power struggle between two foreign global powers haven't really been something that is going to be easy. With their good position, they can get the best things from all these powers surrounding them if they actually play the game right. All right. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Okay.
US and China ever visits this region, securing Indonesia's cooperation could drastically tilt the strategic balance in favor of its ally. Potentially, Indonesia has the size and a favorable geography to turn itself into a major regional naval power. Two main policies have created the bedrock of Jakarta's maritime strategy. The first of this is the Global Maritime Fulcrum, a tangible government plan to boost Indonesia's maritime power. And the second is the Archipelagic Vision, a cultural movement that seeks to support Indonesia's archipelagic national identity. The Global Maritime Fulcrum was a foundational policy of the current president, Joko Widodo's first-term election. This policy is essential to solidifying Indonesia's strategic value between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and acts as a catalyst for building major regional maritime dominance. Of the 5 pillars laid out in the GMF, 3 focus on domestic affairs, while 2 stress the necessity of first, expanding maritime cooperation with other countries, and second, the buildup of its naval capabilities. The Indonesian Navy, also known as TNI,
Wow.
have planned a major overhaul of its capabilities through the Minimum Essential Force policy, aiming to become a green water naval power by 2024. Indonesia possesses the 6th largest exclusive economic zone in the world. With its over 6 million square kilometers of water space to patrol, Indonesia's primary security threat has always been the challenge of administrating its numerous territory and population, dispersed over such a fractured landmass. Beyond issues of nationhood and diplomacy, this has a heavy real-world cost. For example, it is estimated that illegal fishing costs Indonesia's economy around $3 billion per year, and its piracy is such a critical issue that Indonesian waters have accounted for around 20% of global piracy attacks in 2017. Piracy has also spilled beyond Indonesia's domestic security, to the point where it has been a major issue in Jakarta's relationship with Australia for years. Many analysts agree that Indonesia lacks a force capable of performing basic surveillance and reconnaissance of its vast internal waters, let alone projection far from its shores. A major reason for the country's lack of capable military is rooted in the government's staunch policy on non-alignment. For example, the country operates a blend of NATO, Russian, and even Chinese-made military equipment. American F-16s operate alongside Russian Su-30s and Su-27, and even armed Chinese CH-4 UAVs. All these machines use different ammunition and parts for repair, causing their use at an operational level to be complex and expensive. This is a cost the Navy cannot afford, as continuously constrained budgets have already forced it to adopt a policy of prioritizing small upgrades on increasingly older vessels. For example, the bulk of its large vessel fleet is composed of 5 Ahmadiyani-class frigates, built around the 1960s in the Netherlands, and the latest addition in the service surface fleets are decades-old, decommissioned South Korean Navy corvettes. It is hoped that the proposed Green Water Fleet will solve both issues, unifying the state internally and allowing it to finally grow influence in the region. Indonesia's state ethos is intertwined with its maritime projection. The Indonesian archipelagic vision, also known in the country as Wawasan Nusantara, promotes the development of a united and integrated Indonesian nation. The country is physically split into many different islands, ethnic groups, and dialects, making the building of a united nation a vital, yet long overdue aspect of its existence. At the basis of Indonesian archipelagic concept lies the control of its surrounding seas. Waterways are considered as highways that connect the archipelago throughout, ideally making it one big interconnected island. A lack of capable port infrastructure and transportation investment has created deep contrasts between Indonesia's regional economies, exacerbating regional inequality, entrenching underinvestment, and keeping regional fractures from closing. Smoothing out this regionalism is in part why President Widodo announced in 2019 that the capital of Indonesia would move from Jakarta, an already overcrowded megacity on the main island of Java, where 60% of Indonesia's population currently lives, to Borneo in 2024. The move comes at a great cost, and the location is certainly not the most convenient. The island is not only relatively unpopulated, but is also shared with 2 other countries, Malaysia and Brunei. Regardless, President Widodo directly cited the strategic value of the new location as the main driving force for the move, and it seems like the costs of moving are vastly outweighed by the strategic value that a more central capital will bring to the country. While on this channel we have mainly focused on external challenges to nations, Indonesia is a country that is shaped by internal division. From the outside, its geography would seem to make it one of the most influential countries on Earth. But in reality, this same geography places limitations on its economic and political development. If Indonesia were to fully implement with solid resources its archipelago state and naval goals, it would become a major power in Asia. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please share and leave a comment and a like.
Okay, this is an interesting and an important video, all right? To be honest, Indonesia can actually be one of the best next powerhouse in the world because of its resources, because of its geographical position, and its large population, all right? Another important decisive factor of Indonesia is it has the largest reserve of nickel in the world, which is used for batteries. All right. As the world pivots into oil-free world, the need for nickel would rise definitely. All right. It will give Indonesia a huge leverage geopolitically, and it is also important to bear in mind that it can also be a liability if it's not well handled delicately. All right. So share your thoughts, your opinion. What do you think about Indonesia being Asia's most strategic country? I'll be in the comment reading your comments. All right. Thank you for watching and see you guys on my next one. Bye.